Welcome to episode 52 of the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This week's episode is with Anne. Anne is somebody that we actually met through Reddit. And what is unique about Anne's story is that Anne had never struggled with addiction before being introduced to kratom. So we're actually going to chat a little bit about that tonight. I'm here with Jacob. How are you doing tonight, Jacob?
I'm doing good. It's Friday. Happy about that.
I want my hour back though.
I hear you. Yeah. No, it's all right. We'll get through it. No, I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm excited for the interview with Anne. And yeah, we've had a couple guests on the podcast already. I know I talked to Tyrone at one point, who it was his first introduction to addiction, and then there was Elliot and a few others.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think sometimes people can be even surprised with kratom because it's obviously marketed as a substance that can not usually come with addiction, and it's just a supplement, or it's not addictive, or all the stuff that's out there that a lot of us fall into believing, or at least want to believe. So I think that's a thing that happens that's unique with kratom and not so unique with other drugs. But really anything, when you have that first kind of moment where you're like, oh, I think something is a problem. That's happened to me with several substances, but I remember the very first time it was either opiates or alcohol. I liked both, so might have been both at the same time. Just realizing that, oh, I'm not able to use like everybody else, or like we think everybody else can, when in reality people that don't have a problem with drugs or alcohol don't take it to that extreme. But anyways, when you have that realization, like something isn't serving me and I'm having negative consequences and I can't seem to stop, it can be a really scary moment. So yeah, I think it's not necessarily surprising that this is the first addiction for some, but I think it can be surprise, and it can definitely be scary if it's your first time.
Yeah, because not only are the vendors and the people marketing this stuff, not only are they not always honest about what kratom actually is and what you're putting in your body, but a lot of times they're not even honest that kratom is included in these products. What's crazy to
Yes.
me, I've seen some ads, and I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I've seen ads on Facebook where they were literally holding the bottle like backwards and not showing you the label. And that doesn't know about these things or has never heard of kratom like myself might not have thought to look to dig down in there and find that small print. Oh yeah, by the way, this is actually metragenine speciosa. Kratums. Yeah, it's super insidious and sneaky like that with the marketing. And not only does it I'm not going to say tend to, not only is it common to see that this kratom monster can awaken addiction in people that have never had an addiction to anything before, but it also catches those of us that are very familiar with our addictive personalities off guard too.
Oh
Because
yeah.
some of us, yeah, so some of us probably never even would have taken kratom if we knew upfront what it was because of our addiction. Some of us
I
still
don't
would have, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think I would have, and I think I've said that before, but I don't know, maybe I would have, but I really think that I was finally sober from alcohol and like everything else for the first time, and I wasn't doing recovery work, and I was like, oh, I heard about kratom and I heard it's non-addictive, and like I did all this reading, and and at the time all I could really find was like maybe it's as addictive as coffee, or maybe like you might have a day or two where you're like feeling down, but I did not when I woke up and I was like, this is just being addicted to pills again, or like just being like going through alcohol withdrawals again. I'm dependent on this. This is crazy. I was like shocked, and then I was pissed because it was like I didn't
Yeah.
think that this could happen. And I remember, I think I even went on Reddit at the time, and I went into the Kratom forum. I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really sick and I'm trying to stop, and people are like, oh, it's not, it's just it's stuff, and the next day you'll be fine. I was like, next 5 days I was like, I feel terrible, I'm not fine. So it can be a big shock for sure.
Definitely. And do you feel like we see this a lot more when it comes to the shots? I personally know some people that are just regular, quote unquote, blue collar type people that take, and they're just like, oh, thinking they're pretty much like the 5 hour energy shots right there on the shelf when they take them and go to work or whatever. And I think it also seems to be pretty common, like in the community of people that are really into working out, I see a lot of people taking these kratom products as like a boost to working out.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just
kratom
sad.
does work out. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it does. It does. I think with the with the extracts, particularly some of the, I'm not going to say the brands, but the 4-letter one that's really strong. And there's like another one that's like purple that's supposed to be really strong. I think if you don't know what you're doing and you just have one of those and you're like, oh, okay, it's just, I didn't think kratom was bad. And I think some of those are like equivalent to 13 to 20 grams, I've read, depending on which one you buy. So it's like you're getting a ton of kratom, whereas I think some of the more casual users are like, oh, I'm just taking 3 grams before my workout. But I think what happens is, like, just like everything else, right? It's gonna be like, oh, it was good pre-workout, so maybe I'll take some post-workout. And I know I'm having a rough day at work. Maybe I'll take some when I get off to unwind instead of having a drink or something. And then before you know it, you're taking it every day. And then before you know it, you're dependent on it. Then before you know it, you're listening to this podcast wondering what the hell happened. So it's definitely not uncommon.
Not at all. I'm watching somebody that I care about go through this. It started with, it's no big deal. I can quit anytime. To, you got any advice for me? I just have to
Yeah.
say that as an addict, most of us would not wish this on our worst enemy. So it's really sad to see people that don't even, this isn't even, they're not even about this life and they get caught off guard by this. So I'm glad that we're out
Yeah.
here trying to let people know, hey, this is an opioid.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Even if you want to get into that argument of, we had a debate about this, Charlie and I did. But anyways, even if you're like, it's not an opioid, but still acts on the opioid
It
receptor.
does what it does. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you decide to activate that and do it enough times, you'll end up with a physical dependence at the least. But yeah, like you said, the watching someone you care about, that's really hard, I think, from an addict's point of view too, because you can see what can happen, but you also know that sometimes it doesn't, because some people aren't addicts, and you have to, like, it's hard to know what to say, and then it's hard to watch. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then it's just, yeah, maybe we can dig into this deeper at another time.
Yeah, we
But
should.
it makes you wonder, like, how deep is that addict? Do we all have a little bit of an addiction just waiting to be awakened? So
Yeah,
it's an
that's what.
interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think the last thing I'll say is, if you don't don't stress out if it's happened. You're going to stress out anyways, but try to just realize that it's not the end of the world, and you can do what you have to do. There's all kinds of good advice out there.
Absolutely. Just keep on listening to the podcast because, like you said, more than likely, if you're listening to this podcast, you've already found yourself questioning it. So, yeah, we're here for you.
For sure. I think now let's go hear that interview with Anne.
Yay.
All right.
Welcome to tonight's interview on the Quitting Kratom Sobriety podcast. Tonight, I'm going to be talking with Anne. How are you doing, Anne?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We're so excited to have you on the show and to talk with you a little bit about your story. So let's just go ahead and get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am about to be 44-year-old mom to a wonderful, about to be 15-year-old boy. His birthday is like a couple days after mine in April, so we have a birthday bash together. I am a physical therapist, so I'm in healthcare, so I get to just see a different side of healthcare. And I currently live in the middle of South Carolina. So we're enjoying a nice little early spring here today. So
Nice. I can totally relate. My little boy was born on the 6th of April and I was born on the 7th, so I can relate to you there.
nice.
So cool. He's my little buddy.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about what we're here to talk about tonight. First of all, when did you quit Kratom? Have you quit yet?
Yes. I quit back in early August of 2023. And like worst moments came all crashing down at once, and I just made a decision right then and there. It was August 5th, and I said, I'm done with this stuff. So I quit then, and I have not looked back, thankfully.
So you actually quit not long after me. I quit. My first sober day was June 1st, 2023.
Congratulations.
And congratulations to you. Doesn't it feel great?
It feels awesome. It really does.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about how and when you first started consuming kratom. I like to always ask, like, how did you learn about it? How were you introduced to it? And what made you start using it?
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm a little different, but I guess I am in that I consumed the kava-kratom shots that are becoming the hot topic now. I began using the shots probably in the fall of 2021. I saw them on Instagram, like an ad on Instagram. Somebody was using them, and I unfortunately didn't do my due diligence and my research, and I started taking them sporadically in the fall of 2021, and it really didn't become a problem. Luckily, they weren't available in my area at the time, and these really did not become problematic for me until January of 2023 when they became readily available in my area. And that's really, I think, when my usage really skyrocketed at that point.
You say that you didn't do your due diligence. So did you not realize that kratom was an opioid? And what did you think kratom was? Or the fill for the shots, I'm sorry, the shots or whatever it was. Did you know that the shots have kratom? Maybe we'll back up there.
Yeah. Let's do back up there because that's the big issue. I feel like maybe that I have and a lot of people do have is this company doesn't really advertise a lot. You have to go searching on their page that kratom is actually in these shots. So when I first started taking it, no, I had no idea what kratom was. And then I guess started taking it and realized I was doing my research as I was taking these. And then I did research on what kratom was, found out that it was, in fact, something that acted on the opioid receptor. And when I did realize that, I emailed the company and asked them point blank, how much kratom is in this? And they told me, and it was a very small amount, what I thought. But in actuality, the shot has almost like a bastardized version of kratom. And at that point, I think I knew, okay, this isn't good. But at that point, I think I was already hooked on these. No, long story short, no, I honestly did not know what kratom was. And then when I did know and started doing my due diligence and really researching as to what it was, I unfortunately think it was too late for me.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that because this company, if you Google it, there actually was a class action lawsuit against that company because in the beginning they did not list kratom as an ingredient in their product. Now they do. But yeah, I just found that interesting. Wow, I'm sorry that happened to you, that you thought you were taking something else and ended up like a lot of people have that I've talked to, unfortunately. Which takes us to our next question. Did you have any kind of a substance abuse or addiction problem in your past? Was that something that you had ever had to deal with before?
No, and I hope I can bring maybe a different perspective to some people that maybe have started taking kratom or these shot that I didn't even smoke cigarettes. I've never smoked cigarettes. I have a healthy relationship with alcohol. So I've never had an addiction problem. I've kicked caffeine before. So this was something very new to me. And it also was something that was very scary to me. It definitely was an eye-opening wake-up call that has made me very aware of addiction and how it can affect people and different people of all walks.
So I want to know, what were some of the signs that were a clue to you that this was a problem?
Yeah, so again, these shots, I was taking them pretty sporadically. It was like maybe one shot here and another shot there, meaning maybe twice a week. And then it kicked up to one a day. And then all of a sudden it kicked up to maybe 2 a day. But even then, I don't think I viewed it as an issue. It was really when I started going through rather quickly, meaning that if you order a box, 12 of these shots come in a box. So I was going through the 12 shots in a matter of days at this point, and it's expensive. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is becoming a problem. I'm going to cut back. When I did try to cut back, I started getting weird anxiety that I've never had. Panic attacks. I maybe had one panic attack in my life. I started having some cold sweats and stuff like that. But even at that point, I still didn't think that was like a withdrawal symptom. I would just account it to something else. I wasn't feeling good or something like that. But I never attributed it to a withdrawal symptom. But that's when my usage started picking up. I knew it was becoming a problem. And then when I could not cut back on them, that's when I really knew it was an issue at this point. And there's also a financial strain that these began to pose. And that was another issue. And I think that's an issue for all the users of these shots. It does put a financial strain on you.
So when you did try to quit, did you find that you had physical withdrawals and things like that, like the typical opioid physical withdrawals that we hear about so often?
Yeah, I did. And a lot of people will talk about the cold sweats, restless legs, anxiety, joint pain. And I started taking these for chronic low back pain. Yeah, I'm a physical therapist with chronic low back pain and a back surgery under my belt. So I started taking these to mitigate that. And when you come off of them, it almost exacerbates that. So what do? You reach for what you thought was helping you, but in actuality, it's just you're just taking the shovel and digging another hole for yourself. So that's the reason why I started taking these, and then knowing, okay, I can't get off of them. And I'm having these withdrawal symptoms. And I think it just really started compounding on itself.
I bet that was scary because it sounds, if you've never dealt with any kind of addictions or substance abuse issue in the past, maybe this was your first time dealing with physical withdrawal. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I've never in my life, and I don't want to scare people into saying, oh my gosh, this is horrible, I'm scared to quit. But I've just never experienced it. I've never experienced the restless legs and the weird anxiety and the cold sweats, and the insomnia, I would say, was probably the worst for me. I didn't sleep for 3 straight days. It was pretty awful. I'm not a great sleeper, but I can get to sleep. And I kid you not, for 3 straight days, I just saw every hour of the clock and then had to go to work. So that's when I was like, okay, this is a bit much now.
Yeah, that's tough. We actually hear that so often that insomnia is a big part of detoxing off of kratom. And did you realize that's what was causing it, or how long did it take you to realize?
I guess I started to realize what was going on. But again, for some reason, that brain just won't shut up. And you're like, okay, I have to get off this. And again, I'm telling myself, you've never been addicted to anything. You've quit coffee before, cold turkey. Why can't you stop this? And I couldn't. And I think for months, I told myself, all right, this is just going to be the last one. This will be the last one. This will be the last one. And it took my son, unfortunately, seeing me take these. And that was the worst day in August, is when he saw me gagging over the sink because these taste so bad and they make you so sick sometimes. And he just looked at me and shook his head and was like, Mom, if something makes you feel that good, it can't be good for you. And it doesn't even make you feel that good. And that's when I was like, yep, we're done with it. And that was it. That was the last time I touched it. Your worst moment or worst day to finally kick it, when for months I said, all right, this will be the last one. This will be the last one. But yeah, so I think you do realize it, but trying to get your brain to just say, hey, you know what? I have to leave this alone. That's a totally different battle.
So would you say that was like your rock bottom, and what happened that made you decide that you had to quit?
Absolutely. It wasn't, people just, I guess if you're you say you want to do it for yourself, or you hear people, oh, you have to quit for yourself, or you have to do this for yourself. And sometimes it has to be for something more than yourself. And I think I was just telling myself for the longest time, all right, you got to quit this. It looks, your health may be failing. I'm having some issues here and there. But I always like, I'll kick health issues down the road. But when my son sees something and I feel I'm being a bad example for my son, that was it. That was, hey, I got to do this for him, not me anymore. So that's when I quit.
Absolutely. It's for everybody around us that we love, but for ourselves too. What was the hardest part about quitting for you? What was the worst withdrawal symptom and the thing that made it the toughest?
Probably the worst withdrawal symptom really was the insomnia, because I don't want to say I didn't have a really well thought out plan. So I think maybe I quit on a Saturday or something. So I had Sunday to chill. I didn't sleep for those 3 days and I went to work. So then not sleeping and having to function and deal with patients and stuff like that was difficult. And the cold sweats at work were super weird. So that was pretty difficult. And probably the worst withdrawal symptom was trying to drag myself through the insomnia and stuff like that.
Yeah, not getting enough sleep can really affect so much going into the next day and going forward. So I can imagine that was really, hard to deal with. I luckily didn't have a lot of insomnia, but it's something that we hear about a lot.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see that one coming. And also breaking the routine. I think a lot of people have maybe a daily routine that they go through, and just like waking up and taking your vitamins. I think I read on the subreddit group, a lot of people just wake up and take it, or if you're doing kratom, you wake up and take your kratom. And breaking that routine and breaking that daily habit was also difficult, maybe more of like a mental part of it instead of the physical part. But breaking the daily routine I found difficult as well.
I've actually been hearing that a lot this week in the meetings and groups. So we actually put together some information on TikTok about breaking those routines because so many people say the same thing. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we found that helps is replacing that morning routine with something healthier. Even if it's just making yourself a healthier drink in the morning, if you're used to ingesting and putting something into your body. Yeah, I love it. So let's just go ahead and move forward then and talk about how we went forward, or how you went forward from there, how you got yourself out of this predicament with kratom. Did you go cold turkey? Did you taper, use any medications? Let's talk about that.
Being on that subreddit group helped me a lot. And if I respond to people, I try to preach, have a plan, or at least a loose plan. I did not heed that advice. I quit cold turkey. I even poured some down the sink. I had even bought maybe some powdered kratom. I bought it a while back just to do the comparison. I don't mean to say go down a rabbit hole, but when the company told me there was a little bit of kratom in there, I said, all right, well, I'll buy some powdered kratom and compare the two. And there was no comparison whatsoever. That was so much stronger than any powdered kratom. But I still had powdered kratom in my cabinet. I had some kava, which is also in the shots. I put all of that in the garbage disposal. I poured out any alcohol. I poured everything out, and I went totally cold turkey. So I guess those withdrawal symptoms were magnified. I was also taking, for listeners, about 3 or 4 of those shots a day.
That was actually exactly what I was going to ask you, because I know everybody's going to want to know two things: how much you were taking when you went cold turkey, and a follow-up question to that everybody is definitely going to want to know is, for you, I know this is not universal, but for you, how long did the acute withdrawal last?
For me, I would say the acute withdrawal was probably 3.5, 4 days. By day 4, I was feeling better. And that evening, I was able to piece together about 3 hours of sleep. By day 7, I was feeling a lot better. I would say that's by day 7 for me, at least, that mental battle started to begin, where I talk about that daily routine, there were some mornings before I'd wake up, before I eat breakfast, I would reach my hand in the drawer that I used to keep them in. That's how routine it got for me. I would say my skin, I had developed like a rash on my torso by day 30, that my skin had cleared up and I was kind of feeling back to my old self again, physically able to get through a workout without feeling absolutely crushed. But those acute withdrawals by day 3 or 4, I was feeling better.
I don't know what it is about the skin, but I had the same issue with kratom. It absolutely destroyed my skin. But like you, it started looking better almost right away after
Mhm.
quitting.
Yeah. That and the skin was a big thing.
Motivator.
Oh,
Yeah.
it
Me
was.
too. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but it was bad for me too. So maybe we can talk about this for a minute because for me, it was so bad. I would have a cystic acne and not even just on my face. And sometimes it just wouldn't heal for like months. Sometimes I ended up with lesions and like sores. It literally looked like a meth head at times. And I also had this dull gray shade to my skin. Did you have any of these symptoms with your skin? The dryness and baggy eyes and dark eyes and everything?
Yeah, I call it alligator skin. I had alligator skin all on my torso. It was torso, maybe chest down. And you say you developed a lesion. I had one kind of between my breasts that I passed off that maybe my bra was rubbing. And that hung out for a very long time to the point where I almost went to the dermatologist thinking like it was like a skin cancer.
Same.
And never did I think it was the kratom or anything like that. And then I started to develop a rash. But it was in the summer and my son plays baseball. I'm on the baseball field. So I was like, maybe this is a heat rash. So I passed it off as that. But then it kept hanging around. And then I had super duper dry skin under my eyes to where it almost looked like my eyes would get chapped, like wind chapped, but there would be no wind. But I would pass it off as, oh yeah, my face got chapped. But it was the dry skin.
Dry, yeah.
And the acne, I would begin to get the cystic acne on my face, which I hadn't had since I was like 15 years old. But the rash on my chest started to spread, and it really that was unnerving. And so again, that was a big motivator. And that was probably, of course, my son being motivator number one, but the health issues with skin kind of being up there, really, it started to take a toll on me.
And all of that went away when you quit, right? Like your skin looks great now, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
Isn't it awesome? Mine too.
It's great. I'm so happy about that. And when you said that gray, I've looked at pictures of myself.
Yeah.
I did lose a good bit of weight on those shots.
Did your eyes look dead and dull in your old pictures and stuff?
I don't know if we're the same age, but if you remember He-Man, I looked like Skeletor. I
Yeah.
literally looked like Skeletor. It was bad.
Definitely a Gen Xer here as well, so I know who Skeletor is. So it's so amazing yeah. And what about your hair? Just got to ask because a lot of people have the hair thing too. Did you have hair breakage and hair loss?
So I did not have the hair breakage, but I noticed, so I have blonde hair and it used to be super duper oily. My hair dried out a lot. So I was having issues like when I washed my hair, it would almost be like too dry and I had to not wash it as often, which I work out, so that's gross. So I would just have to rinse my hair and not use like shampoo or conditioner because my hair was it was crazy dry. But that, again, at probably day 30, that totally turned around and my hair's back to normal now.
Yeah, the hair for me also was another thing that went back to normal so fast. It just goes to show how toxic kratom is and how we really just don't know what kind of garbage is in it.
It really is. Again, I can't express how eye-opening this whole world is to me. And I totally agree. It's just, you have no idea Or you can say, you can do all your research and say, oh no, I'm putting in whatever kratom, but you really don't know. And that's just the thing that all of us were chasing this dopamine high from some junk that we have no idea what it is.
This is true. And I also like to always remind people that a lot of people will say, oh, you got to make sure you're getting your kratom from a legit vetted vendor, etc. And it's who's vetting them. They're vetting themselves. They are doing their own lab tests. They're the only ones regulating themselves. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
scary. Let's talk a little bit about getting through those withdrawals. What helped you the most when you were going through withdrawals? I know you mentioned exercise. Were you
Mhm.
able to exercise right away? And what else did help you?
I did. I will say during the days of the acute withdrawals, all I did was I'm lucky I have a treadmill in my house. And so I would just walk on the treadmill or I would walk outside. But some of the biggest things I preach, first and foremost, is sunlight. Even if it's a cloudy day, get outside. Outdoors, sunlight were two of the biggest things for me. And then I started introducing like cold showers, cold baths, and I even bought like a cold plunge. So I really started immersing myself in the cold. And I bought like a little sauna that you just sit in as well. So I was doing heat, cold exposure, exercise, and sunlight. And I really tried to clean up my food. And in the early stages of that acute withdrawal, I will say, I forgot to say, I did have GI issues as well. So I tried to introduce like probiotic into my diet as well. So I just really tried to clean my food up as much as I possibly could just to feel better. Anything to jumpstart your brain again to work properly since we introduced this garbage to our brain. So
I love it. You're saying all the right things and doing all the right things. The sunshine, especially getting walks in, I know it's hard, but yeah, just taking my dog for a walk was so crucial in those early days. I totally get that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna reiterate what you said. Like even on the days you just don't want to, peeling yourself up off the couch or out of bed and literally just, I tell people general movement. Just go outside and just move your body. And I felt much better. Even on the hardest days are probably the days that I probably needed it the most and probably grumped and griped about it, but I did it and felt so much better.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say, if you're listening to this and you don't feel like walking, hey, you don't have to. Give yourself grace. If you want to be lazy and lay on the couch, there is nothing wrong with that. But we are just suggesting and saying that if you do want to jumpstart that dopamine, the sunshine and a walk is definitely a great way. So let's talk a little bit more about being sober off of kratom. How were the first 30 days without kratom? What was that like for you?
It was getting out of that first initial 3 or 4 days and getting that week under my belt. Probably in that first week, I had audible conversations with myself in the house, which I felt at least my dogs were listening. I think the first 30 days is crucial to defeat that mental battle. I think that's probably the biggest thing to overcome, finding ways to break your routine of taking the kratom and that's what I did. So my morning routine now is waking up and I try to get a bottle of water in me when I'm taking my vitamins. So I take vitamins now and I do have coffee. I'm kicking the caffeine can down the road. I'll deal with that later.
I feel you there.
So I'll have my coffee now. And on my lunch break, I am fortunate enough to be able to run home for lunch. I live very close to my work. And I literally sit in the sun at lunchtime.
Nice.
So I'll try, if it's a rainy day, at the very least, I'll pet my dogs or I'll just sit on the front porch, sit outside and really just try to soak up the outdoors. And then at night, work out after work. And I listen to my body though. If it's not feeling a workout, then I'm going to watch some true crime documentary or something like that. But I've replaced any kind of intake with tea. I've become like nighttime tea drinker, which is weird. I've never done that before, but I've replaced that, and then I'll do my cold plunge and sauna before bed, and I get a great night's sleep now. I started that, making that a habit the first 30 days, and it's really just continued, I guess, for the past 7 months. So
Making those drinks like a tea, or like my thing is like these mineral water drinks that I mix up and stuff, like that stuff really helps, doesn't it?
it really does. And again, I feel like it's just
Your brain.
Yeah, you're creating a different habit and a healthy habit. So
Right. At least healthier. It's not
yeah,
hard to get healthier than taking kratom. So
right,
that's the good
exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
But it sounds like we both have a great support system in our canines.
Yes.
Do you have any other support system? I know you mentioned your son, but what's your support system look like going forward?
I I didn't tell a lot of my friends about this. I do have one trusted friend that I told them what was going on and have their full support. They're like, check in with me if you need help. We're in this together. I didn't want to put that burden on my son for him seeing me do this, but obviously he knows that I took these shots. He knows I'm off of them, and I used it as a teaching moment too. Like, hey, mama got caught up in this stuff, and you need to watch out for this stuff as well. And I still really, and I tell a lot of folks that subreddit group, it's called Quitting. I stay on that and stay in tap to that. Just if I feel any kind of triggers, like a road trip or something like that was always like a trigger for me. So if I feel like I'm triggered or something like that, then I'll touch base with the subreddit group, and there's always somebody listening there. So that's been a huge help for me.
Yeah, triggers are tricky, aren't they? Just preparing for them, but you can never be prepared for all of them, but
No,
just knowing they're coming.
that's right. And I had a long road trip with my son, and it's driving in a car crushes my back. And I was always the go-to for that. But now Aleve is. I just stocked up on that and some water, and we stopped, and I did some stretches on the way, and that is my substitute now for that's, hey, if I'm going to get triggered, this is what I'm going to do.
But have you found, like me and a lot of people, that your triggers, that what you thought was going to be so triggering is not as triggering as you thought it was going to be?
I think I'm going to agree with you there, because I feel like you're like, okay, this is going to be a trigger for me, so I'm going to prepare myself for it. And you're like, you almost block it. And then something so benign comes up, and you're like,
Yes.
why am I triggered? I just wasn't prepared for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. It's been a weird ride.
Yeah, and you end up realizing, hey, I'm dealing with this shit that I didn't think I was going to be able to deal with, but
Right.
I'm coping just fine.
Exactly. And I'll celebrate little victories like that.
Yeah.
If I drive by a store I used to go to buy these things, I'm like, hell yeah, I just drove by that like a boss.
Right.
And I'm not
Yep.
getting them. So there you go.
Absolutely. I love it. I did all the same things, and I don't even think about it when I ride by anymore. And you're just like,
No.
man. And there's this gas station right by my house that I used to go in. And when I first stopped, the girl would ask me if I wanted my crate. And I'm like, nope, not today. And like now it just feels so good because there's no need to even ask anymore. So it's really cool.
And I think some folks in reading still staying on that Reddit group, they can't fathom being on this end. And I hope anybody listening can say, hear two people talk about being several months clean of this stuff, and to where you're not triggered when you go into that gas station anymore, when you ride by that store, and you don't even think about it. There is light at the end of that tunnel.
Absolutely. And if anybody was truly ever hopeless, I was too, and I'm sure you can relate as well. We definitely can relate to that hopeless feeling.
Absolutely. That hopeless feeling, and feeling like you're the only person in the world suffering from it.
You are not, and you are definitely going to get through that. So let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about what your life is like now, your health, your job, your relationships, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's great now. Like I said, I'm about 7-ish months clean of this crap, and job's going great. I feel a lot more present at work. I think when you take the stuff there, it just almost takes a little piece of you, and you're just not 100% present with your friends, family, loved ones. So I feel a lot more present now. I feel like I can do more things with my son. If sometimes he would even recognize that I was tired, and we still throw baseball in the backyard and stuff, and he wouldn't ask me anymore. And today he just got finished with batting practice, and we go in the backyard and he wants to throw, and I'm not so tired that I can go out there and throw with him. Or I just dropped he and some friends off and they're playing pickleball, and normally I would be tired out of my mind at 8:45 at night, and I'm not. And I feel great, and my energy has returned as well, and that was a huge thing. I think a lot of people maybe find with kratom or even the shots at first, it gives you that quick dopamine high. And after long-term use, that is quite the opposite. And so my energy has returned. I'm having great workouts now. So life is good. I'm happy I'm off of this stuff.
I'm so happy you're off of it too. I'm happy for you as well. So let's just talk about if you would, let me back up. So is there a message that you would like to tell your future self a year from now if you were to go back and listen to this podcast in a year, which you should do? And what would you like to hear yourself say to yourself, your future self?
Man, I don't know. Just, keep going. It's sky's the limit now. And I feel like I was limited in taking the shot and taking kratom. Really put a cap on my life. And I feel like now a cap is off, and just keep going. Hey, if you want to do this, whatever I don't want to sound corny, but even though I'm 44, I still have hopes and dreams. And I feel like that financial strain that was on me is lifting, and that the cap that I put on my life is off now. Just keep going, keep swimming, like what Dory said. Just keep going.
Just keep swimming.
That's right.
Love it. I love it. Look, my little boy his nickname is Nemo. So
Nice.
Am, have we left anything out tonight? Is there a message you'd like to leave with the listeners? Anything we haven't talked about?
Yeah, my big thing that I also try to preach is contact your local representatives, no matter what state you're in, whether you voted for them or not. If you feel there needs to be more regulation on kratom, or if you want to put more regulation on those shots I was talking about or anything like that, contact your local government. So you can look up your district and look up your representative. Contact them and let them know your thoughts. They're oblivious to anything unless you make them knowledgeable of it. And the more people chatter about it, the more they're going to have to look into it. Again, contact your local government, whether you voted for them or not, whether you like them or not. They're supposed to work for us. So that's people are like all the time asking, what can I do to mitigate this? How can we fight this? You have to go to the lawmakers.
You're so right about that, especially when you said that some of them are just clueless. I actually spoke to my city council about kratom, and it's not that I want kratom to be illegal. I just want there to be warnings. I want the truth to be told about what it is and what it does. If they want to continue to sell it with regulations, hey, I just want the truth out there more than anything. So I think that's great advice to leave the listeners with. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's any easy answer. Ripping it off the shelves in one fell swoop is not the answer. But like you said, this isn't regulated. And if there needs to be more regulations, warnings, I feel like there's like a jaded type truth to it, where maybe rose-colored glasses truth to it when you look it up, or if someone's telling you about it. But yeah, no, lawmakers need to know it. And also healthcare workers. I don't want to say a new type thing, but the opioid crisis kind of took over. And so when someone says, oh, this isn't an opioid, it just acts on the opioid receptor. So obviously you're like, oh, it's not an opioid. So this has to be the better choice. And it's not.
But acting on the opioid receptors is literally by definition
Right.
what an opioid is. Like, I also have made a whole video about this. Yes, listeners, kratom is an opioid, officially classified as an atypical opioid. And we all know that all of the same remedies and recovery solutions that work with opioids also work with kratom.
Yeah, and maybe that's another thing to the listeners is that when someone tries to tell you it's not an opioid, it is an opioid by definition.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, and lastly, if anybody is just in that hopeless, alone feeling, just know you have a purpose in this life. And it does that. I'm not going to get religious, but whatever you believe in, whether it be God, the universe, nature, your purpose is something. You are on this earth for a purpose, and that higher power made you for a reason. And you're not alone. And find something, whether it be this podcast or Reddit, or just tell a loved one, you will get out on this other side. Just make a plan, know your purpose, know you're loved, and you will absolutely make it out on the other side.
Absolutely. I love it. And the supporting each other and showing up for each other. We have formed a very supportive kratom recovery community out there. So if anybody's listening, you're welcome to reach out to us and we can put you in touch with meetings, groups, whatever you're looking for. We got you for resources. I just want to thank you again, Am. It was so nice to meet you and to chat with you. We have so much in common. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing your story with us and the listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
This week's Kratom in the Headlines isn't actually about kratom, but it is something that affects a lot of kratom quitters. Today we're going to talk about a medication called naltrexone. I'm sure some of you have heard a little bit about the drug shortages from the media. Unfortunately, naltrexone is one of those medications that is being affected by this drug shortage. Now, just a quick reminder, I am not a doctor or a health professional of any sort, so you will need to discuss any medications with your doctor. But just a reminder that naltrexone is that medication that blocks the opioid receptors so that you do not crave opioids. It also works on alcohol, and if you were to use opioids or alcohol, you would not feel the effects. A quick reminder, you do have to be past the acute withdrawal phase of your opioid detox before starting naltrexone. Now back to the headlines. So now the supply of this medication started dwindling back in November, but we really started to see the effects in February, and many are actually unable to get a current prescription refilled. Manufacturers of this medication have not provided a reason for the shortage other than they are saying it is caused more specifically by a shortage of the medication's active ingredient. The FDA officially recognized the shortage on February 29th, and the American Society of Health Systems Pharmacists have officially added it to their list of medications in shortage. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel here is that a handful of the drug makers have stated that they expect the supply to rebound in late March or early April, which is right around the corner. The rest of the drug makers did not offer up a rebound date. So, what should we do if this situation is affecting us? Again, not a doctor, so you're going to need to talk to your doctor about these specific options, but one option could be temporarily reducing your dose. Is it possible that A lower dose could work for you in the meantime. Discuss this with your doctor. Another option is Vivitrol. This is the monthly injection of this medication. At this time, there is no known shortage of the Vivitrol injection. So this is something you could possibly discuss with your doctor as well. Is the Vivitrol shot an option for you? If you'd like some information about this shot, their website is a wealth of information. You can find a provider there on their website. You can even apply for their co-pay assistance program, which is good for 5 years. I am here to testify that Vivitrol has been extremely helpful with me when it has come to navigating the red tape with insurance. Between insurances, when I lost my job, my copay assistance never did lapse. We are putting in the real work and doing all the things that are going to make all the difference in our recovery this time. And when it comes down to it, we just keep on keeping it kratom free because we've got this. Keep it kratom free, you guys.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to our Kratom Science section, where we explore the latest developments in the world of kratom. In today's episode, we'll be discussing an old but newly rediscovered compound called metragenine pseudoindoxyl. We'll delve into the potential risks and side effects associated with this compound, and how some vendors may be enhancing their products through various means, including microbial transformation or fermentation. Metragenine pseudoindoxyl is a novel compound derived from metragenine, which is the main psychoactive component in the kratom leaf. This compound is believed to be more potent, that has a higher affinity for human mu-opioid receptors than traditional kratom alkaloids, such as metragenine and 7-hydroxymetragenine, which are the main two components that are looked at in the kratom leaf. While the effects of metragenine pseudoindoxyl are not 100% fully understood, the early research coming out now says that it may have enhanced side effect risks compared to traditional kratom due to its, frankly, insane enhanced opioid activity profile. As with any unregulated psychoactive substance, it's essential to approach these sort of things with a good bit of caution. Some of the potential side effects may include nausea, dizziness, withdrawal, addiction, all the classic things we would look for in opioids, except this has a very high affinity for opioid receptors. It's crucial to remember that the long-term effects of this compound are still unknown, and we still need more research to fully understand its impact on humans. It may be possible that some vendors are looking to capitalize on this, and it's possible that they may be trying to enhance their products through various means. One such method is called microbial biotransformation, and for this, we can call it fermentation. And this involves using microorganisms like certain fungi to convert metragenine into this metragenine pseudoindoxyl molecule. This process can result with a more potent product with potentially heightened risks. Other vendors may be using synthetic methods to create metragenine pseudoindoxyl, as there have been studies showing how to make it, and this can also lead to increased potency and unknown side effects. Given the potential risks and unknown long-term side effects with this metragenine pseudoindoxyl compound, we're going to strongly advise against consuming any products containing this compound. The lack of research and understanding surrounding this substance makes it impossible for anybody to guarantee its safety, even when approaching it with caution. However, it's important to note that metragenine pseudoindoxyl is not a standard compound that's tested for in laboratory analysis or on certificates of analysis. This means that even if a vendor provides a COA, it may not include information about the presence or concentration of this metragenine pseudoindoxyl compound in their products. This lack of transparency in standardized testings further compounds the risks associated with this. You can test for it, but you would need to test for it through GCMS or something much more sensitive. Metragenine pseudoindoxyl is not tested for in any of these standard laboratory tests. So to wrap all this up, metragenine pseudoindoxyl is a newly rediscovered compound that has the potential to be much more potent than the traditional kratom alkaloids that have been put on the market today. However, with this increased potency comes the risk of further enhanced side effects and unknown long-term consequences. And I think we're starting to see these consequences, especially if you're listening to this. As with any psychoactive substance, it's essential to prioritize your health and your well-being and to approach these sort of things with a good chunk of caution and responsibility. Stay informed, stay safe, and always listen to your body. If you see something out there that is just wildly potent with no real explanation as to why, know that this can happen. Thanks for listening.